guys, this is DP0427 here again for another episode of the Watchtower. And unfortunately today we don't have Mr. Scotty back with us today, but we have a treat. We have good old Ogre back from the dead. Hey Ogre, say hi.
Hey!
So
It's good to be back.
So today it's me and Ogre. And just a disclaimer, I'm recovering from a cold, so my voice might sound a little hoarse. I might be coughing at times, just a heads up. Ogre's outside, so it's a bit windy where he is, so sort of make do with the audio quality. So just a little bit of apologies in advance. So
Hopefully it's not too bad.
Right. So on the docket today, we only have one thing to talk about, and it's going to take the whole podcast to talk about it. It's Avengers End Game. So.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And just like the Shazam podcast we did last month, this is going to be completely filled with spoilers. So, there's no hold bars. And, if you haven't watched the movie yet, that's your fault at this point. Really.
You have been warned.
Right. So
do not yell at us.
So, at this point, either, click away or go watch something else and then come back after once you've watched it. So, what we're going to do, like we did the last time for Shazam, is we're going to talk about our general thoughts on the movie, give it a rating out of 10 and also out of 22, and we'll explain why. And we'll go over scenes and parts of the movie we liked, things that we didn't like, or maybe that should be improved upon, and what we think about the movie and the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward. So, let's just jump right into it. So, Ogre, rating out of 10 and 22, and explain both.
All right, so rating out of 10, 999. I just, I can't give it lower than that. The movie was absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. It was everything I had hoped for and more. Mm-hmm. So, and then out of 22, in the MCU, I rank this movie as second, only behind Infinity War.
Okay, fair enough. So, why do you think it's worse than Infinity War? Let's go with that one first.
I don't think it's worse than Infinity War, mm-hmm. but I think as an overall movie, I enjoyed Infinity War more. Okay. Just because of the pacing and everything that happened. Mm-hmm. This movie is a little bit slower start, mm-hmm. but when it finally pays off, it pays off huge. So, that's the only reason. The Infinity War, the entire thing was just, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, you're like, oh, that's cool. And then you finally hit the point where you're like, ah!
Yeah. So it was sort of like a slow build up to a higher payoff, right?
Yeah. And I think that's the only reason I put it lower.
Okay. Is that also the same reason why you wouldn't give it a 10?
Yeah, it's, I don't know. Honestly, it might be the best movie that I've ever seen. I'm not sure. Again, and I think the only reason that I put it at 999 was because I think Infinity War was just a little bit better. Uh-huh. Okay. I think that's why I didn't give a 10.
That's fair enough. So, for me, I follow your logic there. So for me, out of 10, I'd give it about a 9, a solid 9, not a 9 or a 9.5 or whatever, just a solid 9 out of 10. And out of the 22 Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, I'd put it at number 1. I think it's the best out of all the movies because it wraps everything up in a nice little package it ties it with a nice bow on top. It was just perfect. It wrapped everything up.
Okay, so the last hour was absolutely cinematic glory.
Yes.
I will give you that. There's no way you can argue that. That movie was amazing in the last hour. So it's the first 2 hours that I have the most issue with, and again, it's not even that much of an issue.
And that's the reason why I would give it a 9 out of 10, is because I agree with you that the pacing was a bit slow at the beginning. It kind of dragged at some point, and it kind of forced you to figure out what was going on.
Right, you do have to pay attention.
Yeah. The Iron Man stuff, the Thor stuff, the whole figuring out, where we left off.
I thought Thor was hilarious.
We'll get to that.
When every woman in the collective theater went, ah!
Right. But I mean, basically at this point, we'll get to that in a sec with the character stuff, right? But,
yeah.
The beginning of the movie was slow, but it was purposely slow. It needed to be like that because it had to.
Well, you had to rebuild up the tension.
Right, exactly. You had to show how everything.
Infinity War came in with already all the tension built.
Right.
So
there's this big battle going to happen in Infinity War, and we're just sort of ramping up to that battle, and let's go, right? That's basically what Infinity War was about. This was that.
This is the aftermath,
right? And now everyone's figuring out in the dumps, and everyone's trying to figure what's next. They had this whole plan. They're going to go through with this plan. They have no real other choice. They go through the plan, and they figure it's done. Nothing else can be done about it. Just go on with your lives, right? And then everyone's back at the dumps again. So
well, I mean, it's an interesting thing to think about because it's the stages of grief,
right?
And so looking at it in that perspective, Marvel has done a lot with the stages of grief and PTSD and different things and how people deal with those things.
Uh-huh.
I think they've done a really good job with their characters throughout their time of doing movies. That they've done a really good job with those particular subjects.
Yeah.
So,
all right. I mean, that's a valid point. So that's probably a good reason why the pacing of it was the way it was, so that they could sort of give justice to that in that sense, right? So.
Right. Exactly. And I think that if it had been a shorter movie, you definitely cheapen those emotions, and you don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. All right. So let's get into what we thought about certain scenes, parts we liked, characters we liked, and things like that. So what did you like about the movie in particular? Like things that stood out to you?
All right. So my number one moment was towards the third hour when everybody finally showed up.
The Avengers.
You got so many references. Yeah, when all the Avengers finally showed back up, you had so many references. You had on your left from Captain America Winter Soldier, which was hilarious. You had, everybody showing up, but the line finally got delivered. We finally got Captain America saying, "Avengers Assemble."
Yeah.
That to me was the best part of the movie.
I was wondering why, during all the other movies too, why, especially all the other Avengers movies, why they had to actually, drag that out for so long. Why did they had Avengers something at, they cut it off like at the end of the movie, right? Before. Why did they drag it out? And now you see why. They wanted the payoff here. So.
Well, I mean, as a fan and as, a comic nerd and everything else, I think it was worth the wait.
Yeah.
We finally got it, and it made sense because it was the final showing for Captain America. Yeah. It made sense.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I mean, Steve Rogers.
I mean, we may still get some cameos from him. We may still get cameos the way they did it in Spider-Man Homecoming, where he's doing commercials and stuff. But I don't think we're gonna have quite the same. We're definitely not gonna have Captain America around anymore. Well, so we might see him on a poster or something. In the background.
Rogers, Captain America, though, right? So.
Right, we're talking about Steve Rogers. Sorry,
we're sort of jumping ahead first. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, now that we're on that subject, what did you think about the Steve Rogers, Falcon, Bucky scene?
The final scene?
Yeah.
I thought that was an amazing payoff for Cap. Mm-hmm. That was exactly what I wanted him to do.
Right. Now, in that scene, right, now we know that he talks to Falcon and he hands the reins over to Falcon, basically. The question is here, what was going on with Bucky? Because Bucky was sort of just standing there, and Steve doesn't even talk to Bucky, and Bucky doesn't talk to Steve.
Here's my take on that. They've been friends for so long. They've been through so much. They kind of know each other at this point.
Right.
And as soon as Steve quoted the first Captain America movie was, with "Don't do anything stupid, you're bringing all the stupid with you." As soon as that exchange took place, Bucky knew what was going on.
Okay.
I think. So, I think he knew that was goodbye.
Yeah. Okay. But then my question was, why didn't he make Bucky the next Captain America instead of Falcon? Right? Because in the comic books, there's both of those situations that happen. There's a Winter Soldier who becomes Captain America, then there's also Falcon who becomes Captain America. So why one versus the other? That's sort of where I'm trying to lead. I'm leading toward.
Okay, so my thoughts on that were they're trying to let Falcon shine a little bit but also they may end up throwing Bucky into space at some point with Rocket because they kind of had a dynamic.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that.
So they don't want
the arm. I really want their. I'm going to get that arm.
Right? No, I like they had a dynamic. I mean, he picked up Rocket and they just spun around shooting everything for a little while too.
Yeah.
Like they had charisma together, and I think that Marvel realized that, and they kind of want to maybe build on that at some point.
So they're gonna make it part of.
So they can't have Bucky be Captain America if that's something they want to build on.
Okay, that's fair. So the Falcon scene. So I agree with you that it was really touching. It was well done. The whole like shield.
You want to tell me about her? No.
Right, that whole thing. Now, the other thing about that scene, we also know that how he goes back in time is through the quantum realm, right? And through the quantum realm. Now, through the comics, we know that the quantum realm opens up something that was also discussed with Spider-Man. The multiverse. They talk about the multiverse also in the new Spider-Man Homecoming stuff, right? There's Spider-Man far away from home, right? And
Far From Home.
Far From Home. That's it. So we know, well, we're sort of jumping ahead again, that now there's this talk about the big M word about multiverse being there, right? So that opens up a whole other can of worms for what they're doing going forward. But we'll talk about that at the next part of the show. So, okay. Aside from that part of this, the end scene, is there any other particular scenes that you remember that you really, really liked?
The whole movie was really good. I loved the reveal of Professor Hulk. That was hilarious. That was hilarious. I loved it. I also like when they first got to New York in the first Avengers movie. Oh yeah. And he's like, "Hey, smash some stuff on the way," and he's like, yeah, pretty much. It was hilarious.
He's so like, I'm not into this anymore.
It's one of those things that you think about, like, how does an intellectual, react to that kind of a thing where you ask them to, hey, throw your intellect aside for a second and just be a mindless rage monster. Yeah. Like, the intellectual is like, oh, I don't want to do that.
It's ogre.
I mean, to be fair, he fought for a long time with Hulk, and it was finally, them coming together that made Professor Hulk, and he didn't want to, revert back to that, I think, is part of another thing, so.
This is like you on a daily basis.
Right?
I like that scene a lot. That was really funny. Let's see. For me, particular scenes. The one scene, probably the best scene for me. Well, there's two scenes, and they're basically the same scene, but they're split into different parts. The first scene is the first scene that really hit home to me was at the end of the battle. It's Thanos versus Iron Man, and Iron Man snaps. He says, Thanos says, "I'm inevitable. I'm Iron Man." Right?
Yeah.
That was like, ouch. That was one of those, like, I don't know how to feel moments, right? So.
Well, I mean, it made a nice bookend.
Right. But it was
how it started, and it was how it ended.
But it was the shock factor that you knew it was coming. You knew it was coming. You know how it was going to end. You did. But you couldn't handle it still because.
Right. No.
It was just so much that happened. Like, what just happened, right? And that feeling I couldn't get over for about at least like a good 3 or 4 minutes until the scene was like wrapping up. Right? And then when the scene was wrapping up, so you see him there after the math, like half his body's like charred. His face is half his body's charred. He's like, all the life is being sucked out of him at that point, right? And you see person coming after him. And it was the scene, like basically Spider-Man comes and you see. Yeah,
it was the reverse.
It was
from Titan.
Right.
Because he finally got acceptance from Tony as his father figure. Tony finally accepted that and was, cheering him on during the battle. That was great. And then all of a sudden he dies and he's like, no. Right. Like it was really heart-wrenching.
Mr. Stark. And then
conversely to that, Pepper, when she shows up and tells him you can finally rest, I think that's a good reference to Iron Man 3 where post New York he was having nightmares and he couldn't sleep because of all the things he had seen. you know, and she told him he could finally rest because all of it's gone finally.
Yeah.
The threat is over. You know, I thought that was cute.
The pepper scene was the part that wrapped up the scene for me that made it feel like, oh, this is really happening, right? So
yeah.
And just to sort of diverge a little bit on Pepper, the whole Iron Woman suit thing. So you think?
Oh, rescue.
Yeah. You think rescue is going to actually be a thing going forward, or is that just going to be like they're going to finish it?
I think she'll make some cameos.
Right. So that's
at least.
Yeah. Now then, that was the first part of the scene, and the second part of the scene was the funeral, right? And the funeral was another one of those, like, again, I don't know how to feel. I can't get over what's happening. Like, we as the audience members and the people watching this you feel like you're at the funeral. You don't know how to process this, right? Like, you're grieving too. So,
right.
And you see the panning of all the members. You see Nick Fury in the back. You see Captain Marvel being stoic and standing in the middle for some reason. You see people at the back on the porch. And people and the send off with the evidence. Like this is evidence that Tony
this is proof that Tony Stark has a heart. Yeah, his original arc reactor.
Right, that putting that into the water and setting it off. That was a touching moment. But
did you realize who the one lone kid was? The teenager.
No, who was that one kid?
That's the kid from Iron Man 3 that Tony ends up in the garage.
Oh, and he saves them. Oh,
yeah.
And he comes back. Oh, wow. I didn't know who that was. Wow.
Like, he kept in touch with him, apparently, so.
Apparently, wow. Good pickup. But that's the end of that scene. That scene, that part of that scene that really, you know, I was gonna like, if I wasn't in the theater with my best friend next to me, I was gonna like bawl uncontrollably. It was the scene where his daughter and what's his name, Lucky, right? They're sitting down.
Oh, Happy.
Or Happy. That's his name. Sorry.
Yeah.
Happy and his daughter are sitting down on the porch, on the bench, and she's like, "Are you hungry?" He's like, "Yeah." "What do you want?" "Cheeseburgers," which is a callback to Iron Man 1, right? Right? And it's like, cheeseburgers.
And then he says, "Your dad likes cheeseburgers too."
Yeah. "I'm gonna get you all the cheeseburgers you want." That scene.
Yep.
Oh my god.
The end of the funeral, yeah. That was really good.
That was too much.
Okay. So I really like that Marvel decided to go in two different directions with Cap and Iron Man, and they made them both tear-jerking, amazing, scenes. But they went in completely different directions. They were still both tear-jerking, emotional scenes. So,
yeah.
So I don't know if you picked up on this. While we're on the Iron Man topic, I'm going to transition to Rhodey.
Sure.
There was two things about him that kind of stuck out to me. The first one was when they were on the Holo viewers talking to Black Widow. Right. Captain Marvel, Carol looks at Rhodey, and they kind of share a look at each other, which is a callback to the comics where they're actually an item at one point.
Oh, I didn't know that. So War Machine and Captain Marvel were together. Okay.
Yeah, for a while they were together. I don't know if they still are, but I know at one point they were. So that was something that I picked up on. I was like, ooh, that's cool. Maybe they'll actually do something with that. And then the second one that I picked up on, it's really hard to catch, but when they finally come bursting out of the ground at the battle, when Ant-Man goes giant and, Rhodey and Rocket come back out, Rhodey looks like he's in the Iron Patriot suit.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see.
It looks like it has a red and blue hues with the white star in the middle.
So he becomes a sort of upgraded War Machine.
It looks like it, yeah. I mean, I could have been wrong, but that's what I thought I saw.
Cool. So that's sort of like foreshadowing potentially for future things.
Right, and I mean, it's one of those things that you have to think that Captain Marvel and War Machine would actually make a really good pair to do a movie together, the same way that Bucky and Rocket would make a good pair to do a movie together.
Yep. So
and I think that's what they're foreshadowing is that, what's the future of the MCU? Let's find out.
Okay. All right. In terms of what people were saying, I mean, what we're saying, what we're thinking about the movie in terms of what we didn't like, we always said that the pacing at the beginning was a bit slow, but maybe, forcibly so. is there anything in particular in terms of like maybe comic book stuff or even cinematic stuff that we could have improved on in this movie?
Well, I've heard a lot of talk about two particular things. One of them was that there are plot holes now created.
Mm-hmm.
One being Loki,
right,
and his escape in New York, and another being that I forgot completely what I was going to say.
So, okay, well, let's talk about the
Let's talk about the Loki thing,
right,
real quick.
So, what do you think about the Loki escaping thing?
Okay, so the way that Cap's time travel worked and his mission and everything, I have to assume that he corrected that. Because that was his mission.
Okay.
So...
to get back the Tesseract? Or to put...
Well, it was to return everything to the place that they took them from.
Right.
But with the botched mission there, I have to assume that Cap also fixed that. So that the timeline would be back intact.
Okay. But the thing about the Tesseract, now this is something about the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe and everything that involves Tesseract. Because Loki has the Tesseract. It's also the Space Stone. And it's also part of Captain Marvel. Right? So...
It is?
That's how she got her powers, right? Captain Marvel got her powers from the
Tesseract. No, it wasn't from the Tesseract. Was it?
From the movie, in the Captain Marvel movie, it's basically like they were showing the Tesseract, like what they were getting from, right? It was a Tesseract.
I didn't think it was the Tesseract, but I could be wrong. I only saw the movie once, and it's been a little while, so.
So, in essence, if it is what I'm thinking, right, then that means the Tesseract is existing in 2 or 3 different planes at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it could also mean, if that's the case, that it doesn't necessarily have to be in one plane. It doesn't have necessarily to be like, existing only in one place. So that means that Loki could still be somewhere else, and everything's back in its place. You know what I mean? So also the thing about the multiverse traveling and time travel in general, they were talking about. Well, we perceive time travel, especially those of us who are DC fans, as being sort of like what we think of like sort of Doctor Who, like that kind of stuff, right? Where if you go back in the past, you mess with something, it messes up the future, like Flashpoint, right? So, but in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, especially in this movie, they explain it as when you're going into the past, your present becomes your past, and your past is now your future, or your past is now your
present is now the future.
Right.
Or, no. The present is now the past, and the past is now the present.
Exactly. Right. So you're moving forward from the past. So basically...
You're basically reversing time.
Right.
The flow of time.
Right. But you're not...
For you, while you're in the past.
Right. You're not necessarily creating a new future by altering the past, because that whole idea doesn't exist in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right?
It's...
So the fact is that that's what creates multiverses, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a sense. So,
right.
That being what it is, Loki could still be out there somewhere, right? So,
well, I mean, I think fans are excited to think that was Loki coming back to life because they love Loki,
right?
And they didn't like it when he died in Infinity War,
right? Just like now,
right? And I think that this is the payoff for those fans who really love Loki.
Right.
Also, we know he's getting a show.
Oh, yeah. Now, in terms of that one scene, I felt that scene with Captain America trying to get back the stone, Captain fighting Cap, and then the whole Loki scene at the end, I felt that whole scene was a bit jumbled. Like, everything was happening too much at the same time. It was too hectic. They could have spaced it out a little bit more, I feel. But maybe that's just...
Well, I mean, you gotta remember, they also have to get on the timeline that they had for the original Avengers.
That's true.
They have to follow that timeline. So, I mean, they have to think about how did that all happen and how fast did we pace it.
Right.
What was the aftermath and all that.
Right.
So, like, I don't fault them for it.
Yeah.
I also thought it was a great callback in the elevator where Cap's got the Hydra agents all around him.
Hell Hydra.
Well, no, the callback to the elevator scene from Winter Soldier. It was the same setup. Same setup, except that this time he outsmarted them instead of beating their butts.
I see.
So, I did like the Hail Hydra. That was also another callback to the comics. So,
now there was a lot of particular scenes, like small scenes, but I felt that there were some parts that were lacking that they could have showed us more. But I see why. So, for example, we did get a lot of screen time with the characters all that died, and basically that made sense. So, like characters like Black Panther and all those characters, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, and so on.
Spider-Man, like they didn't have a lot of screen time. You're right.
Like I felt like those characters somehow could have had more screen time, right? But it wasn't a movie.
Well, it wasn't about them.
Yeah, it wasn't about.
It was about the original Avengers.
Right.
Oh, that was the other part that made people mad. Black Widow. My bad.
Oh yeah, the Black Widow and the Hawkeye scene.
Black Widow Hawkeye scene.
Yeah.
It didn't make me mad at all.
Yeah.
I thought it was very true to both of their characters. You know, like no, I'm sorry, but no. It made perfect sense to me.
There's a lot of defense online about what I was reading about people saying, well, is it because Hawkeye has a family and that she...
That's how she viewed it, yeah.
Right? And then so he deserved to live where she deserved to die. And then some people were saying like, but, you know, he had done the things in his life. He basically went rogue and he was being Ronin at one point. So... Well,
yeah, no, I thought that was great. You know. Yeah. I thought that was great. I love it because of the comics, you know, obviously. Right.
But then...
showing me that version of him is great, so... But it comes down to the argument of, you know, Clint saying, I've become a monster.
Right.
Nat saying, no, you still have a family, you can go back.
Right.
It is essentially what it comes down to. And on top of that, I'm pretty sure she still feels that she's more a monster than he is.
Because she basically...
Even with all the people that he recently has killed, she's probably killed more.
She was an assassin, so...
Right, exactly. She's probably killed more.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that her mentality was, no, you're still worth saving.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that's really what it came down to. And they both had that same mentality of, no, you need to live. You're worth saving.
Yeah.
And I think that's really just the hero dynamic at its, you know, core of everybody's worth saving.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that was a really good scene. So.
Well, let's touch on Hawkeye a little bit more. So, what did you think about Hawkeye's character development, since we basically didn't see much of him in the other movies?
Well, and we found out why.
Yeah.
You know, we found out why. He was under house arrest after the events of Civil War, which was interesting, which was fine. I actually appreciate that. I love that they developed his character a little bit more, because I think he's done as well at this point, if I remember right. Basically, they retired all of the original Avengers except for Thor.
But Thor, he's kind of like semi-retired. He's just doing something else right now.
Well, that's the question. Like, it was more along the lines of contract-wise, all those actors were out of contract now.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's one of those things that maybe Chris Hemsworth has another movie on his docket. I don't know.
I think he's still going to do stuff with them. Like, I think.
Yeah, I mean.
Oh yeah, I mean, since we're talking about Thor, let's talk about Thor then. So let's get right into the whole Thor Lebowski.
I thought that was great. I mean, okay. So remember how I was saying about people that deal with PTSD are different?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, Thor has survivor's guilt.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, he feels like if he had just gone for the head, Thanos would have been dead and nobody would be dead. Yeah. He has survivor's guilt.
Right.
So, like, he feels like he shouldn't have lived if nobody else did.
Right.
Like that was the thing. So I mean, it shows, you know, something that does happen to people. You know, like, what do you do with your life after you have this? Like, and he just kind of let himself go and he stopped caring.
Yeah.
So, and that is something that does happen to people. So,
and he's grieving through booze and video games.
Yeah, exactly. He literally just says, "I don't care anymore. I can't care, or people get hurt."
Here's the other thing about that scene that I really liked. Not only the fact that it showed, you know, like the humorous side of how we could take Thor. It's the callback to Thor Ragnarok and his friends in his little shack.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's his name? The guy who...
Korg and Meek?
Yeah, Korg. Korg. The New Zealand guy, the guy who does his voice.
He's played by Taika Waititi.
He's so good. He's so funny.
Yeah.
And he's just like, they're like, hey, like, you want to get some drinks? They're like, we're good here, man. We're playing. They're playing Fortnite.
We're playing like Fortnite.
It's like, oh my gosh, it was so funny.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it was just a callback to that, and it was also just like, we're actually here in reality. People are playing Fortnite on Avengers.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So
now at the same time, you mentioned Korg and Meek, but they also did show up through the portals that Doctor Strange created. Korg and Meek did show up.
So they just
Meek was in his battle armor, and Korg had his blaster.
Yeah. So they just
they showed up at the end. They were there.
Yeah. That's cool. So they're part of the battle. I mean, I think those are sort of like the unsung heroes that they got as much screen time as they needed, but I really like those type of characters, those sort of support humorous characters. So.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, absolutely.
So yeah. So in terms of Thor, now that we know that he's a Guardian, basically
with the Guardians.
Yeah. You think he's going to go on?
Well, the Asgardians of the Galaxy, another callback to the comics.
Yeah. Do you think he's gonna go on a diet?
Well, I don't know.
So the Asgardians of the Galaxy. Now moving forward, I love the whole dynamic between him and what's his name, Chris Pratt.
Quill.
Quill, right? So him and Quill.
Yeah.
Him and Star-Lord. That whole who's the leader? You're the leader. No, seriously.
You are, of course. We all know.
Like, well,
you say that, but then you keep touching the map. Well, I'm just trying to help.
So there was that whole dynamic.
It's a very different role for Thor.
Yeah. There's that, and then there's the whole Groot. I want Groot to be back in like full form soon. Like, not just baby Groot, not just teenage Groot, but yeah, hopefully that they build off that.
I think that's where we're gonna get to finally. When we get to the third Guardians movie, I hope that full-grown Groot is back.
Yeah, I mean, basically everybody's back now. Gamora's back, but Gamora's like, is she the real?
Well, that's a question. We don't know if she is.
Yeah, I can't remember actually.
I did think it was interesting that Nebula went on to the ship and nobody had any issue or anything to say.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I kind of lost track of it. Like, where did Nebula end up? Did she end up on that ship? Like, yeah, she was on the ship, right?
She did. She was on the Guardian ship.
So she's a Guardian now too, basically. Okay.
Yeah, she's full-blown Guardian at this point. Like, her and Rocket, you can actually tell they have a bond.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
So
here's the other thing about the Guardians aspects. We know that James Gunn is...
Nebula has changed a lot.
We know that James Gunn is back on for Guardians 3, right? So now that James Gunn's back, Drax is basically secured because Dave Bautista's not going anywhere. And so we basically have the full team still there. So that means...
Right, except for Gamora.
So if we have a Guardians 3 movie in the future, does Thor, piece into that then?
Well, I think Thor actually replaces Gamora.
But Gamora's there now.
Not necessarily. She was not... Remember, at the end of the movie, Star-Lord was scanning for her, but no signs were detected.
Oh, okay. Well,
right, and she was from the alternate timeline.
Okay.
Which means that when Tony snapped and dusted the other timeline, she might have gotten dusted.
Awkward.
But that's the question we don't have an answer to.
Okay, that's fair. All right, so that's the, leaving the door open for another Guardians movie. I like that. In terms of other movies moving forward, I mean, where we see this branching off into future Marvel movies, what do you think we're expecting? We already know that the next Spider-Man movie is after all of this. Nick Fury comes and hijacks his vacation. We see Mysterio. Right. So do you see anything leading in from End Game into Spider-Man, for example?
Well, I think that Happy will be in there still. Happy Hogan will still be in there. We might see a cameo from Morgan, the Tony's daughter.
Yeah.
We might see a cameo from Pepper. But I'm not counting on those. I'm counting on, we have Fury, we have Spider-Man. We might get somebody else from the Spider-Verse, but they have a lot to build on there if they want to. So I don't think we're going to get other characters per se.
Okay. So basically, we only have to expect like what we see from the trailers. So Spider-Man and Mysterio and the Elementals.
Yeah, and Fury.
And Fury, yeah.
I mean, I would expect Hill to be there too, but I don't know.
Okay.
You know, if Fury's there, Hill's probably there, but I have no idea.
Yeah. We also saw like a callback to some of the former Agents of Shields too. Like the, do you think we're gonna see like any of them come back too? Like the in the Shield capacity, or is it just gonna be Nick Fury?
I think it's just going to be Fury. I think Shield is officially dead in the MCU, but we'll see.
Okay. I mean, okay. So in terms of all that,
I wouldn't mind seeing Quake make an appearance. I wouldn't mind seeing Coulson make an appearance.
yeah, that would be cool too. Yeah, I was thinking maybe about Coulson, but yeah. All right. So in terms of other movies going forward, do you think that there's certain movies that might have, like certain characters that might have their own movies that we haven't really thought about yet?
Right, and that's what I was referring to earlier when I was talking about, you know, does Captain Marvel and Rhodey have a thing?
Mm-hmm.
Do they move forward in the next Captain Marvel movie together?
Sure.
Does Rocket show up with Bucky having his own movie? You know, what's going on here? I don't know. Maybe Bucky will just show up in Guardians 3. I don't know. Falcon obviously has to have his own movie at this point.
Yeah. We know Black Panther 2.
Probably
Black Panther 2 is also...
He might actually be in Black Panther 2.
Right.
Yeah.
So...
Doctor Strange 2 could be interesting because we'll probably get Scarlet Witch
Right.
in there with him because they were building up that in Infinity War.
Yeah.
So we'll see what they do with that. And now that Vision's gone, that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that too. I forgot about that. So Vision, you know, he's basically gone. Like really gone.
Right. He wasn't killed by the stab.
Yeah. Because he just became the stone again. Well, he was turned into the stone. Where he was...
Well, no.
The stone was
the
taken
stone
out
from
of him.
He lost
Yeah.
conscience. Yeah.
But you would think that...
So that's an interesting thing to think about, though, is that if they rebuild his body and reattach the stone, does the stone house Vision's consciousness?
Right. I think it could be, but the other thing is, like, the stones are gone now, right? So...
Right.
Or are they?
So I think Vision's gone.
Yeah.
Vision's probably gone at this point, even though he was a super cool character and they underutilized him. But
and Paul Bettany was a great actor.
Right. No, he was perfect for him.
Oh my God! How do we not talk about this? So when I'm thinking of
because there's so much.
Right. When I was thinking of Vision, and I was thinking of the original, was it Age of Ultron movie where Vision picks up Thor's hammer. Which is a callback from that to this movie with the Captain America scene.
Yeah.
Right? And Thor is like,
I knew it! Yeah. So, I think in Age of Ultron, when everybody's picking up the hammer and stuff, and Cap does, you know, make it move, right? I think what it was in that scene, just knowing Captain America Steve Rogers' personality, is that even if he could move it, he didn't want to. I think that's what it was. He wanted to spare his friend, you know, even if he could have moved it then, he didn't want to, and that's why Mjolnir stayed where it was.
So he wanted it to show that, like, I'm human just like you guys, but I also don't want to make you guys feel bad because I'm more righteous than you.
Right. Well, I think what it was is he didn't want to make Thor feel bad.
Oh, okay.
Being that Thor was the only one who could pick it up.
Right. And then
he wanted to make Thor feel like he was unique and important.
Right.
Because if Cap can lift Cap can lift Mjolnir, all of a sudden Thor is useless. Is the way that Thor would feel.
And I still remember
because that was the personality that Thor had at the time.
I still remember that whole scene. Like, what if you put the hammer in an elevator? The elevator's moving.
The elevator's not worthy. Yeah.
Right. So that's what I remember. But the scene with him, so he's got him and Thor battling side by side. He's got the hammer, and then there's this point where they basically trade off. He picks up the axe.
Oh yeah.
So here, you get
no. You get the little one.
That was too good. It was like in the middle of the...
They had some great dynamic for what was there. I also thought it was a great callback to have those three face off against Thanos. And then when Cap did call Mjolnir, I was really waiting for Tony to throw his chest piece for the nanites to have him in the armor with the shield, with the hammer.
Yeah. Everything.
I was really waiting for that, but it didn't happen.
A big sort of like Kamehameha like explosion moment.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, they kind of had that, but it was...
I've gone Super Saiyan!
Yeah, basically. But they beat the crap out of him there, but then he still kind of came back, and there was a whole thing about Thanos. Why was he so powerful in this movie when he didn't even have the gauntlet, didn't have the stones, right? Whereas
Because
before,
Thanos is that powerful.
but it was weird. Like in Infinity War, he had the stones, but they were putting up basically the same amount of fight. All right. So.
I disagree.
Okay.
My argument to that is if you rewatch Infinity War, the entire time that Thanos is fighting with everybody, he basically is musing and he's smiling like the whole time.
Okay.
And he's basically like toying with them. He knows he is. Like he knows he can't be beaten.
Yeah.
Where in this one, you actually see him grimacing and taking hits and fighting. I think that's the difference. Also, in this one, he had his armor and his weapon. He did not in Infinity War.
Uh-huh.
So take that as you will.
I mean,
But Thanos' blade did bust the vibranium shield, so...
yeah. I was watching, like, basically when he's fighting against Captain America, you see the shield just, like, sort of disintegrating piece by piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it really shows.
So, I mean, you can argue all day long about him being weaker in Infinity War, but I don't think he was actually trying in Infinity War.
Yeah. He was sort of, like, playing with them because he had the stones, right? So he was doing whatever he
Yeah, exactly. Because he had limitless power, there was no reason for him to try, and he was just having fun, letting them enjoy their last moments, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually makes perfect sense when you look at Thanos' character. You know, it makes sense for him to let them feel that way.
Right.
You know? Because he's not a heartless individual. He doesn't want to just destroy them and put them down. That's not his purpose. You know, so it makes perfect sense to me that he would do that.
Basically, going from there. Well, I mean, okay, well, that whole thing is done now. Do you think we'll ever see? Do we see Josh Brolin coming back in a role other than Cable now, or Thanos Scott?
I think Thanos, he'll possibly show up in flashbacks or something, but I think he's gone as far as like a villain. Because obviously we need to move forward with some of the other Omega level villains. You know, like Galactus or whoever.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a lot of space that Marvel hasn't explored, and I think that they've wrapped up Thanos finally, and I think it feels good. I think it feels good where it's at. So
now the big thing that's on a lot of people's mind now that Disney has acquired Fox is with the licensing.
Fantastic Four.
Well, that's Fantastic
and
Four.
X-Men.
X-Men, exactly. Do we think that with the new Avengers class and the new X-Men's class after Dark Phoenix, do we think that there could be some involvement of the X-Men, or even are we going to find a new Wolverine and put Wolverine in there? What do you think?
Well, that's the thing. Hugh Jackman has stated he would come back as Wolverine if Marvel got a hold of it. I'm pretty sure he stated that at some point.
The thing is, he's getting old, right? So
I know he is.
We can have Old Man Logan, or are they going to like CGI him, sort of like how they CGI Nick Fury? Or
I mean, they CGI'd him in Logan to be the younger version,
right?
And he looked just fine. So,
I mean, but there's only there's only so much you could do that for, right? It's something like
right.
It gets old real quick because it's just like CGI.
Well, I mean, there's two movies that the fans want that I think that they would be hard pressed to not make at this point, and that would be Spider-Man and Wolverine and Deadpool and Wolverine. Those are the two movies that the fan wants. And Wolverine was an Avenger for a while, so I mean...
Yeah, I mean, that was the biggest thing about the Avengers, like, not having Wolverine from the beginning, obviously due to licensing problems, but... Well, then, that is what it is. And Beast, too, right? Beast is sort of in there, too.
Yeah, Beast. Yeah. They did get Vision and Scarlet Witch, at least, which I was happy about, so... Because those are, again, two mutants that... Well, Vision's not, but, I mean... He is, but isn't.
He's Jarvis. But
well, I mean, Vision in the comics is tied to the mutants more than he is anything else. But he's one of like the original Avengers. I mean, you can't not have him. Like, So I don't know.
So okay, well, anyways,
there's a lot that could happen going forward, but we need to wrap this up. It's getting a little long in the tooth.
Yeah. All right, I mean, I guess we'll wrap it up there. In terms of what we're expecting going forward, there's a lot of speculation, but hopefully, Marvel has set the course for, I would say a reboot, but a good, moving forward from where they are now. So
there's no reason to reboot.
Yeah.
You just keep moving forward.
Right.
Like, you have so many characters that you have yet to explore.
So great send off to Robert Downey Jr. and what's his name? Not Chris Pine.
Chris Evans.
Chris Evans. Yeah.
Chris Pine is Star-Lord.
Right. Yeah, that's Chris. Yeah, that's Chris Pine. Yeah.
Too many Chris's.
There's 3.
And Chris Hemsworth is Thor.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr.
Scarlett
Johansson. Great send offs. All
Jeremy Renner. Like,
right.
I think all of the original Avengers had the send off that they deserved.
Right. And hopefully, all those who stick around, they do good by the rest of the series. So we'll see.
I think they will.
So, all right. So I guess we'll end it there. So if you guys agree or disagree with some of our thoughts, feel free to leave a comment in wherever it is that you hear this, whether it's on iTunes, Google Play, or on SoundCloud, or on YouTube, or even on Reddit. Just drop us a message and we'll respond to you as soon as we can. So with that, we'll wrap things up here. And that's all, guys. Have a good night.
Have a good one.
Hi, this is Renee Sylvia 88, DC Legends moderator. Thank you for listening to this episode of WROL Broadcast. If you liked the show, please help them out by becoming a Patreon and earn special rewards. Just go to patreon.com/WROL Broadcast. Please don't subject us to the creepy ogre news voice.